It's simply a great training device for the hands and also important for the functioning of the brain. The Rubik's Cube is considered the most famous intellectual puzzle of all time. My hands never hurt when I put together a Rubik's Cube. Other speedcubers say that their hands hurt. One hand was specifically hurting. My muscles were tense, as if I visited a gym and worked out with one arm. Watch next what is speedcubing and what success have Ukrainian intellectuals achieved. Hello guys.
Привет.
Привет.
What is your name and what will you tell us today? I'm Mikita. I'm Max. I'm Zhenya. We're Ukrainian speedcubers and today we will tell you what a Rubik's Cube is. Speedcubing is a high-speed assembly of various puzzles such as a Rubik's Cube, a pyramid, a megabinx, and so on. In fact, there are a lot of these disciplines and puzzles available to those who are interested. Firstly, it develops spatial mental thinking. Secondly, it is very useful for training the motor skills of the fingers, and thanks to speedcubing, I got acquainted with many new friends and traveled around Ukraine. Lately, speedcubing in Ukraine is developing very rapidly. This is due to the fact that there are competent organizers who hold competitions, and there are people who have pages on YouTube and promote this intellectual game every way possible. First, about 100 people participated in the major competitions. Today, there are already 200 to 250 participants, and this is far from the limit. I get a huge thrill and an adrenaline surge from speedcubing. First, this allows me to learn something new every day, including this formula that we have learned 100 times. And then someone comes and shows some new tricks and you think, not bad. We can embed this in our strategy and use it to our benefit. This communication with people and this competition is exactly the spirit of rivalry, when milliseconds decide everything in the finals. That gives motivation to put together the Rubik's Cube faster and better. I've been engaged in speedcubing for almost 7 years. I learned about this hobby a long time ago, but the first time I learned how to put the cube together was 6 to 7 years ago. I saw in school how my friend was able to assemble 3x3 fairly quickly. I also bought a cube, tried to put it together, but I failed. I went up to him and asked how he does it, but he didn't want to reveal his secret because he could do what no one else did in school. When we got into one camp, he finally taught me. Initially, it was hard for me, but after a few weeks, I caught on and solved the cube puzzle. I learned how to put together a cube from the age of 9. That was 10 years ago. I went abroad to rest for the first time without my parents. None of my classmates or friends went on that trip, so I asked my parents to buy me a Rubik's Cube. It was a very strange decision. They gave me the money and said, "Go and buy it." And I said, "No, I have already chosen one in an online store, and a very cool and fast one." They did not understand this at first, but eventually agreed and we ordered it. Together with the cube, there were assembly instructions. And in the first 30 minutes I already put together the cube for the first time. Throughout the trip, I put it together myself without instructions.
Делать это без инструкции самому. Изначально это было просто как хобби.
At first it was just like a hobby, something that I can do outside of the classroom and instead of homework. And then it turned into an essential part of my life. I worked for some time in a store that sold Rubik's Cubes. It was a golden time for me. It was interesting to visit other cities, other countries, and set some records. And this helped me move on.
Странно даже ставить какие-то рекорды, и это сподвигло к тому, чтобы идти дальше.
I started speedcubing in 2013. Then I went on vacation with my parent, and I saw a Rubik's Cube in a kiosk and asked my parents to buy it for me. They bought it for me, and since the summer of 2013 I began learning how to put it together. In the cube, I enjoy that I constantly collect and make new records, surprise other people, go to competitions in other cities, meet new people and set records in competitions. This gives me an adrenaline surge and brings me great pleasure. There are a lot of different disciplines in speedcubing, such as a 2x2 or a 3x3 pyramid, megabinx, scuver, and so on. But in general, there is a basis. It is a 3x3 cube. So we can say for certain that when they use the term speedcubing, they mean exactly the classic cube of 3x3.
Размер кубика
The
определяется
size of a cube is determined by the number of elements, 3 by 3 and by 3. This is a classic version of the Rubik's Cube.
классическим вариантом. Это кубик Рубика.
The Rubik's Cube is put together using the most varied options. Firstly, with one hand, with feet, and even blindly. There are very many options. I even saw this when solving it underwater, and even when jumping with a parachute in free fall. So there are most definitely a lot of different options.
У меня кубиков порядка 30.
I have about 30 cubes, but my favorite is GAN 54. I still really like to assemble the pyramid. They're basic cubes that I use all the time and practically almost every day. But there are those cubes that are more for the collection. My very first cube spinned awfully. I couldn't collect it properly. I had to turn it with a whole hand and it fell apart. I found a cube on the internet, which at first seemed to me expensive. At that time it was 150 hryvnia. It was about 2012, but I decided to buy it anyway and did not regret it. I set a lot of different records and it helped me a lot to develop in the cubing.
И потом это очень сильно мне помогло развиваться в кубинге.
I can assemble the classic version with two hands. I can assemble with one hand. I also assembled at the competitions with my feet. I have not yet mastered the blind assembly, but in the future I think it will be possible.
Всего кубиков у меня на самом деле много, но
I actually have a lot of cubes, but I give them all away to some friends who need them more than I do. Not all of them are interesting to me. And those that I collect are those that I find interesting to assemble, with which I got to competitions. I keep these ones at home. Among my main disciplines is 3 by 3. I love this one most of all. This is the basis of the basics. It's a classic, so I like it the most.
в принципе есть несколько способов.
In general, there are several ways to assemble the classic cube. With two hands or one hand in terms of the number of moves. You're given an hour, and during this hour, there is one scramble in which you have to make the minimum number of moves in order to win. The players assemble this cube blindly. I mainly spend my time on the standard 3-on-3 with two hands, though I can also do it with one hand.
Решение также у меня неплохо идет одной рукой.
За 6 лет, которых я собираю кубик Рубика,
For the 6 years that I have been assembling the Rubik's Cube, at the moment I have only one Rubik's Cube. I used to have about 50 different cubes. My favorite Rubik's Cube is 3 by 3. I mastered it first and still assemble it. I made the most assemblies on it, this particular the puzzle. I love to put it together with one hand. I tried to assemble it with my feet and blindly. So far, I successfully assembled it with my feet. I like to assemble the Rubik's Cube in different ways. It is easy to learn how to assemble classic 3x3 cubes on the internet, but also in Ukraine, in large cities. There are speedcubing schools in which there are people like me and teachers who can teach both adults and children. Also, a possible option is the meeting of speedcubers. They're often held in big cities, in places where there are speedcubers that gather on weekends, and there they're already sharing their experiences and are communicating. This is an excellent opportunity for almost anybody to learn the art of speedcubing. In the beginning, as soon as I learned to assemble, I devoted about 30 to 40 minutes a day to the cube, sometimes more, sometimes less. But when I became addicted to this intellectual game, I devoted 2 to 3 hours. When I was preparing for the competition, I turned to the cubes for 5 to 6 hours. This is not only speed assembly, it is also the study of various formulas and so on. I used to do this when I was really into cubes, and it was one day when I put together a pyramid of 1,000 assemblies per day. This was when I was preparing for competitions. I made 6,000 assemblies in 6 weeks, and then I managed to take second place, and I was very satisfied with it. Not so long ago, we prepared for a marathon, and I assembled a Rubik's Cube for 12 hours. In 12 hours, I managed to assemble 2,813 cubes. The hardest was at the very beginning, because it seemed to be something complicated, and that you will not succeed initially.
В основном все всегда сам, понятное дело, что там.
Mostly I engaged in this alone. Of course, algorithms are very different. To solve the same problem, you can find 20 or more different algorithms, and you can always choose the best one for yourself. I learned the very first on, and at a competition, I saw a different solution of my friends, or in some foreign video and adopted this algorithm. Over my entire path, I had not particular mentor. At the beginning, I read on how to assemble a cube, and then I gained knowledge from all sorts of sites with algorithms. Now, unfortunately, I do not engage in this as much, but the most productive time for me was when I was sitting during the night hours.
Самое продуктивное, так сказать, время для меня – это ночами сидел.
Учился я собирать долго.
I learned to assemble the cube for many years. I started in August 2013, and in October of 2013 I learned to master it. I spent 2 months on it. It is really a long process. Some people learn it in a day or two. I learned to assemble the Rubiks Cube alone by watching training videos. There are a lot of them on the internet. You can find videos for every taste and analysis of any method. Soon I found out that there are meetings held in Kyiv and in different cities of Ukraine. I started to visit them and met new interesting people who voluntarily taught me some new methods.
Добровольно, просто новым методом.
I engage in Speedcubing a few hours a day. I feel that for me it's simply a way of getting some intellectual pleasure every day. There are such difficulties when you're constantly trying to assemble the cube in record time, but it doesn't improve. This is when you feel what I call a crisis period in your ability, or even creativity, to assemble the cube. But the main point to assemble the cube in quickest time possible to get the ultimate satisfaction. In such cases, I advise you to assemble more. Do not stop. Your time will improve anyway.
Как можно больше собирать.
Я выделил 4 вида соревнований.
I would distinguish 4 types of competitions. These are at the national level, these are European championships, world championships, and of course unofficial competitions. Now there's one Cube Association, and all official competitions are held under the name of this association. My first competitions were held in 2013. I really enjoyed them. There, I did a good job assembling a pyramid. In short, this is a discipline that I truly like. I love puzzles that are put together very quickly. There are 2x2, 3x3, Cube, and pyramid. I recently participated in 14 competitions. Over this period, I traveled to different cities across Ukraine. This allowed me to not only gain the experience of the cubers, but also see interesting places throughout the country.
Куберский, но и путешествовал.
My entire competitive journey began with the usual 3x3. Then I started going to competitions to learn about new cubes. There are 18 different disciplines, and at one time I really liked the square. It's such an object that even I do not have at home because I don't collect it anymore. But once I spent all of my free time on it. It looks like a normal cube, but it turns in 2 planes only, the upper and lower edges, and in the middle so-called slice change shape. And when you assemble it into a cube shape, then you assemble it based on color. I spent around 2 years of my Speedcubing life working on this. I achieved fairly respectable results, and I even set my first national record in this discipline. It was very interesting and thrilling for me. This is exactly what initially motivated me to go out and try to set some new records in this intellectual competition.
В 2016 году я...
In 2016, I set the main record with one hand on the Rubiks Cube. I assembled it in 10.25 seconds, and I was 34th in the world. This was my greatest achievement in competitions. I like this in competitions. I'm happy. I come, I meet my buddies, we hang out, we assemble a cube, and of course, we share news from the world of speedcubing.
Делимся новостями из мира спидкубинга.
It was nice to meet you guys. We were also glad to meet you.
Желаю вам успехов.
We wish you success in speedcubing and setting new records. Subscribe and submit your likes. Look for us in social networks. Develop your skills. Goodbye to all.